Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from leaders in the digital infrastructure industry. I'm Buffy Harakitis of JSA, and joining me today is Daniel Kurgan. He is the CEO of Arelion.
Good morning.
Good morning, Daniel. Welcome to JSA TV.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. We are here at ITW 2025, and let's talk about Arelion and its strong global presence in the connectivity space, especially among so many challenges with providing seamless global connectivity. And what are some of the key factors that enable your business to offer reliable and high performance networks across such diverse regions?
Well, again, thank you for inviting me. I think Arelion is one of the best kept secrets in the industry, so it's a great opportunity to talk to you and your viewers. I think one of our very key strengths is Arelion is now, a broad network, but that has developed only organically. It is not the result of multiple acquisitions. So we grew the network from the start organically and progressively build our own network. And that has enabled us to deliver, well, I think premium quality services in an easier way. And expanding, originally from native Sweden to Europe, and now significantly into North America, and now even to Mexico. We are very much what I call a northern hemisphere business, right? With big presence in Europe and North America, and slightly smaller but important presence in Asia as well.
Well, the demand for digital infrastructure continues to grow, as you
Yes.
know, of course. More and more enterprises and businesses become, more data driven to the cloud and services along that line. How is your business positioning itself to meet these evolving needs?
Well, actually, we try to be at the forefront of technology innovation, right? The challenge for us is that we have a never expanding network with a never increasing amount of customers, and always more traffic on the network. So we are really partnering very closely with the technology vendors. We ourselves, we don't develop technology, we use technology, because what we need is at the same time, well, to deliver the highest quality of service, but also, given the volume explosion, I would say we need obviously to contain what I call the unit production cost of every gigabit or terabit of megabit in the network. And that's what the company is very much laser focused on, right? It's a very focused company. 500 people, just delivering a few core, connectivity products, and we are only doing this
Yeah.
to indeed, global service providers and large enterprises.
And you, like you said, you serve a wide range of customers from large enterprises to telecom providers, many which are here today.
Yes.
How does your company tailor these offerings to meet the specific needs?
Well, that's actually a very good question. More and more we see indeed large enterprises that need strong, underlay networks to deploy their own services and applications. And well, we sell the same products, right? We may package it a bit differently, or and indeed sometimes it's more complex to serve a large enterprise because there are way more locations and it's a more complex solutions to put together, and that's why we have dedicated teams focusing on that. But we basically sell the same, and we see definitely an increasing demand from large enterprises for high quality, I would say, level 2, level 3 for those who know,
Yes.
connectivity services, right? And I would say the North American market is more mature, and we are growing today faster in North America than in Europe, right? That this happens often in technology, where America is a little bit ahead, right? And then the Europe follows. But now in Europe, we see a strong increasing demand as well.
Yeah. And where can viewers go if they want to learn more about your company?
Where can they go? Well, they can definitely come and visit us in our meeting rooms on the third floor, right? Or they can reach out to us in our various locations, right? We have, of course, an HQ in Sweden, but we have a very large presence in North America with an HQ here, I mean, in Herndon, Virginia, and almost 100 people in North America, and people across various locations in Europe.
Great. And your website?
www.arelion.com.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today and,
thank you
and
for
talking
having me.
to us about connectivity and your business. We appreciate it. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in to another episode of JSA TV from ITW 2025. Stay curious, stay connected, and happy networking.
Thank you.
Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from leaders in the digital infrastructure industry. I'm Buffy Harakitis of JSA, and joining me today is Sharon Cassidy. She is the Business Development Director at GTA, and she's all the way from Guam.
Yes.
Here at ITW 2025. Sharon, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Having a great time here.
Yes, I mean, this is the final day of ITW. Always a little bit of a sad day to say goodbye to all of our friends that came from all over the world here to join us at the National Harbor to talk about the latest trends and innovations happening across the space. But more specifically about GTA, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit more about GTA and who you serve?
Well, we are on the island of Guam, so we're probably one of the furthest people that have come the longest distance. We kind of rival some of the other folks, but we've got a pretty long commute here. On Guam, we are a quad play provider. We're one of the strategic locations for cable systems right now. So our focus in my team has been more on the data center side, as well as we do everything from POTS lines all the way up to 100 gig wavelength services. So a pretty big gamut. We serve the island of Guam, but we also serve the Pacific region just because of the connectivity on the subsea cables and the world, really.
Yeah, well, great to have you here.
Thank you.
Plenty of data center operators
Yep.
and companies to talk to here and some tuning in live. What sets GTA specifically apart in such a highly competitive, tech telecom market?
Well, I believe that because we have our own infrastructure. Over the years, we've actually been established since 1952. We privatized in 2005, so we were originally a government agency. And over the years, we have developed not just from providing regular POTS lines, we went into mobility, we've gone into the internet space, and now we're into the data center space, where Guam's strategic location in the Pacific and so close to Asia has really set us apart in everything that we're doing. So you'll see that our markets is everything from not just a data center and you need rack and colo space. We're that interconnectivity to be able to connect you to Japan, to the US, to Australia, and now soon the Pacific Islands.
Yeah, that's very important, especially
It
with
is.
the explosion of growth with the data center sector. Can you share any recent milestones or expansions for GTA?
Yep, definitely. We are in the middle of finishing off our GU3 data center. We've got a landing party of a subsea system that's landing there. As the year progresses, we should be done by the end of this year. So end of Q3, beginning of Q4, we'll be going live. And that data center is going to be twice the size that we already have. We land 6 cable systems already within our 3 facilities, and this is the latest one that we've got right now.
Well, that's exciting
Yeah.
news. Is there anything else you want to share today?
No, it's been a great experience. ITW's been just a great way to continue to develop our relationships with our vendors, our customers, and just other partners that we've got. And we've done everything from roaming to data center stuff. So this has just been a really great experience for us.
Yeah, there's nothing like being in person, seeing your partners and your colleagues.
Definitely.
For sure, here at ITW 2025. So thank you so much, Sharon, for
Thank you.
joining
It
us
was so
today.
nice to meet you.
Such a pleasure meeting you all the way from Guam, GTA. Where can viewers go if they want to learn more?
GTA.net, www.gta.net. You can find our full gamut of all the things that we can provide and then contact us through there.
Awesome. So thank you again, Sharon, for joining us for another episode of JSA TV live from ITW 2025. To our viewers at home, stay curious, stay connected, and happy networking. Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from leaders in the digital infrastructure industry. I'm Buffy Harakitis of JSA, and joining me today is none other than Mike Jonas. He is the CEO of Light River. Mike, welcome back to JSA TV.
Good morning. After 3 days of ITW, we're still at it.
We're still at it here at ITW 2025 in National Harbor. And like Mike said, it is day 3, our final day. And we're saving the best for last.
Oh my, thank you for that.
You're welcome, Mike. So honestly, such a pleasure to have you back on JSA TV. I mean, we've been hearing that network operators are stretched so thin with smaller teams, less time for proactive network management. And FlexOps, your solution at Light River, seems to be helping. Can you tell viewers a little bit more about that?
Yeah, you bet, and thanks for the question. So yes, the world of connectivity, where we're sitting, is extremely dynamic right now. What AI is doing, we read about every day, but continued growth in video, continued growth in cloud, inputs from cybersecurity are just driving a huge technical skills gap. We just don't have enough people to do all the things that are required, and we won't again. So how can Light River affect a positive change in the marketplace? Well, we've developed our FlexOps software-enabled services suite, which is really the fusion of transport network intelligence with intelligent transport engineering to get more out of the great team we have by enabling them in software to be more productive, to be more thoughtful, and do simple things easily. Which it sounds simple to me, but it might not be simple to others. Maintain network software and firmware currency. Make sure security patches are filled. Really kind of basic blocking and tackling, but network operators don't always get to it. They've always got a fire burning. And so how can we help efficiently? Well, we're going to use software to make our engineers more intelligent and more productive. And that can also lead us to doing more complex things like helping to map a next generation transformation, a new network strategy. What do I have? What is it doing? What else can it do for me? But all of it enabled by technology.
Well, Light River always staying ahead of the curve with such an important solution with FlexOps there, being reactive to proactive operations and keeping things moving there. I mean, with the rise of open multi-vendor optical networks, service providers are just juggling things here with diverse platforms that don't often speak the same language, right? And some of the biggest challenges, that need to be solved, I believe NEO, one of your other solutions, is doing that. Can you talk to viewers a little bit more about NEO?
I can. So kind of in keeping with FlexOps, networks have been developed over 35 years using various vendors, various technologies, various iterations and approaches. Today, or until today, we really haven't had the opportunity to unify that and extract actionable intelligence from the network, because it's not a single data lake, it's a whole bunch of disconnected ponds.
Right.
So with NEO, we'll take a feed from either one of our software products or current vendor NMS, and we'll combine that information and feed it into an intelligent analytics engine and basically answer questions that an operator might pose. How can I save power? How can I save space? How can I easily groom circuits? How can I easily harvest inventory? So that analytics engine does the math, and then the operator can either make the adjustment to develop their network, or we can for them using FlexOps.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely those two solutions work together.
They do.
It's important.
They
can, yeah. And we also heard that more organizations are struggling to visualize and manage their hybrid network ecosystems, especially when automation is the goal, which obviously automation is at the forefront, right?
Yes.
And it should be the goal if it's not the goal. And there's another solution that Light River offers called Prism. How is this helping bridge the gap between visibility and orchestration?
So Prism is our transport network orchestrator. So it will either from a Netflix API, a Netflix feed, or the TAPI feed from a vendor NMS, combine that data into a single set of intelligence. That intelligence then can feed northbound into OSS, BSS, planning tools, into NEO itself for those transformational questions. But within Prism, we've really adopted and embraced the intent-based networking. So Prism, when it is not feeding another system, has been developed and formatted with a persona-based dashboard approach. What would a CEO want to see about the operation of his network? What would a CFO like to see?
Right.
So it's fully configurable, but right out of the box, we start with those basic dashboards, things that I'd like to see when I open my laptop in the morning. And fully configurable, but what is a quick snapshot informed by the actual information in your network for how your day is going to go?
Well, it definitely sounds like a must-have solution, especially that it can be tailored to different personas. And so all of these solutions can be individualized or combined together.
Absolutely. Not everyone is the same.
Right.
We have network operators that are brand new and their mission is the highest capacity throughput ever. We have other operators that are 125 years old and they have generations of equipment and customers to support. And the combination of Light River's investments in our knowledge-based team is available incrementally or comprehensively.
And if viewers want to learn more about these intelligent solutions, where can they go?
I bet they could find some more information on lightriver.com and hope they do.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you here at ITW 2025 and at all the conferences where we get the opportunity to catch up with you and learn more about Light River and what it's doing in the industry. So thanks again, Mike. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in to another episode of JSA TV, live from ITW 2025. Stay curious, stay connected, and happy networking. Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from leaders in the digital infrastructure industry. I'm Buffy Harakitis of JSA, and we have two very special guests today joining me from XKL. We have Casey Inman, she's the Director of Sales and Marketing, and we also have Chad Lamb, he is the Principal Solutions Architect. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us, Buffy.
Absolutely. So it's day 3
Yeah.
of ITW 2025, and we are going to be talking more about XKL and a little bit more about your roles within the company. So why don't we start with you, Casey?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for having us. So at XKL, our mission is to make DWDM easy. We really want to empower our customers to be able to light dark fiber and take advantage of layer 1 optical network solutions. Part of how we do this is that we have in-house experts, right? So our company is founded and run by Len Bosak, who's the original co-founder of Cisco. And then we also have our director of engineering, Mike Fahey, who's been with us for 20 plus years, and then Chad, who's with us today, who helps run our product roadmap. And all of these folks have, tons of experience with optical transport, optics in general, which are very complex. And they've been working on it from 10 gig to 400 gig, and now we're actually looking at prototyping, and we have 800 gig in our lab right now. And one of the things we do really well is that we're very consultative, right? Our customers have said things like, you can tell that XKL systems are designed by engineers for engineers. And we do all of this while still taking into account, their business and their customers' needs. And then just a little bit about me, and then I'll pass it over to Chad.
Yeah.
But I've been with XKL for a little over 2 years now. I was brought in to help design and execute the go-to-market strategy. And now I'm really focused on how do we drive the vision to make sure that our customers, we can help them solve their problems at the layer 1 optical network.
Well, you're
level.
doing a great job.
Oh,
We're
thank
definitely
you.
hearing more and more about XKL since you've joined the team.
And then I was going to have Chad just really quickly
Absolutely, of
introduce
course.
a little bit about himself.
Thank you. Chad Lamb. I've been with XKL for 25 years, long time. Really focused on product line development. Work really closely with sales and marketing and the engineering team to develop solutions to help our customers solve their problems rather than create new ones.
Well, that's important. We don't need any
Yeah.
new problems. You recently released 2 new products, correct? And the fiber patch panel and the DAT 100, which I understand were inspired by your unique approach. Why don't you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with our fiber management system, our XKL's patch panel, and then we'll go ahead and move into the DAT 100 after we've spoken about that a little bit. So, one of the things about the patch panel is it seems so simple when you look at it, right? But if you think about the way that operators are having to deploy hundreds and thousands of these in data centers, it really does become an important piece of the puzzle because when it's designed well, it can help reduce operational overhead and debugging time. So one of the things that we did is we are very, again, hands-on with our customers. So we observe them, right, in their environment, and we watch them really struggle with having to feed cables through the back of the rack, and then, the labeling is confusing. So again, just like how many of our products are designed by engineers for engineers, we took a second look at this, and Chad really helped lay out how do we redesign this patch panel. So we've now implemented that, and we have a clear labeling as well as better cabling, which again is going to really help you save operational overhead. And then I know Chad had some additional kind of technical things he wanted to touch on about that product.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Casey. The patch panel came about, as you say, from customers. Customers have problems. They're trying to deploy equipment, and time again, they're struggling with the breakout cables. This all really started back at 4x10 gig circuits, but then 4x100 really made the problem worse, and 8x100 for 800 gigs even worse. So these breakout cables, labeling, patch panel confusion, it amounted to deployment problems, delays in getting circuits brought up, which cost our customers money. We heard time and time again the horror stories of deployment delays for something as simple as this patch panel and cabling exercise. So we came up with a solution. So that's, as we said, that's what we do. We solve customers' problems.
And solving problems in today's challenging landscape is definitely most important for sure.
And then, sorry to cut you off.
No, I was gonna say.
So one of the other things that we designed similar, is purpose built is the DAT 100, which is our dark star aggregation transponder. And the goal of this system is to give operators an option to extend the life of their 10 gig circuits that they're still supporting in the network. So again, we designed the DAT 100 to provide operators an efficient way to, instead of managing and running 10 gigs down one channel, don't you want to run 100 gigs down that same channel and be able to support your 10 gigs still? But I know Chad has a lot more about the design and the technical elements that he wanted to talk about, so I'll take that.
Yeah, thanks, Casey.
Yeah, you bet.
The DAT 100 is really unique. It's layer one 10 gig aggregation. So what that means is we've done a purpose-built FPGA approach. It's not a switch ASIC or router ASIC that's inside this. That amounts to about 10x improvement in latency and about a third of the power draw than a typical deployment for aggregation. So what this has enabled our customers to do is go green and really be able to support their 10 gig circuits. They're still out there. They still need to support that, yet be much more spectrally efficient in putting the 100 gigs down their fiber.
Well, thank you for giving us more details on the DAT 100. Sounds like you guys created these solutions specifically to meet some of the pressing challenges within the industry for your customers, for sure. What trends are you seeing in the optical layer of the network?
Yeah,
Casey?
yeah, absolutely. So honestly, we could talk about optical networks for hours, but I'll go ahead and focus on just a couple of the main trends that we're seeing right now and that we're looking at. So I'll break it up into two pieces. So we're looking at how can we provide operators, network designers with a solution that will provide them the capability to more easily offer spectrum as well as wavelengths to their customers, right? They want it to be easy to be able to provide services. And so we're actually in the process of designing a solution that helps solve that problem at layer one. And that's one thing. And then the other thing that we're actively looking at is 800 gig, right? 800 gig in the marketplace. How are we deploying that? Who needs it and when do they need it? So I'm going to pass it over to Chad to kind of tease a little bit more on our new products coming up.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. So FlexGrid solutions are not new, but the efficiencies that we've provided here with this new product, WSS-based solution, so that gives us the ability to provide customers with 800 gig support today, even though they're probably not deploying 800 gig for a while. The solution, though, is really integrates the amplifiers, optical channel monitoring, all the statistics that you need to really be able to operate the system. And we do it in a way that the typical network engineer can deploy, manage, and control. We hear a lot from customers of the complexities of the existing solutions for this, and they really don't understand how to control and operate it, and they're having to go to their vendor, get additional services, get support, and really what they want to do is they want to control their own network, and that's what we're providing here with this new solution. And it will be 800 gig ready, so when they are ready to move to the next level, it'll be very easy for them to do so.
Well, thank you so much, Chad, for giving us some insights and a preview of the new solution there. Is there anything else you want to add, Casey?
Yeah, no. So, I'll leave you with this, right? XKL is really focused on how do we help empower operators and designers to build the networks of the future. However, we're also very focused on the fact that we want to support them as well today, the designers, the operators, the network engineers, with the problems that they're dealing with today. And we're having a ton of fun doing that at XKL.
Well, having fun is most important while you're working so hard to solve these challenges for your clients. Casey, where can viewers go if they want to learn more about XKL?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us on LinkedIn at our website, www.xkl.com.
And Chad, thank you so much for joining us. Casey, always a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for having
Viewers,
us.
Buffy.
you're welcome. Viewers, thank you for tuning in to another episode of JSA TV. Stay curious, stay connected, and happy networking.
Hi there, welcome to JSA TV, where we are covering the latest in networking in terms of the latest stories, trends, and innovations throughout the entire digital infrastructure community. We are here live at ITW 2025 in National Harbor, Maryland. Quite the excitement around us, and I am honored to be joined by two colleagues from Raiden. First, Tim Piccarilli. He is the Vice President of Strategy for Raiden, and also Natalie Para Novasad. How did I do?
Great.
Great. Director of Marketing from Raiden. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us. This
Thank
is
you.
awesome.
It's a pleasure to have you too. All right. How is the show going for you?
Show's going great. We're a startup, a newer company, and for a lot of folks, an unknown entity. So it's been great for us to tell the Raiden story, introduce ourselves, and make a lot of really great connections.
Terrific. Terrific. Okay. Well, then why don't you start right there? I would love to hear more about Raiden. Tell us about your organization.
Sure. So Raiden is a data center and technology infrastructure solution provider. We are a young company, but our founders are veterans in the commercial real estate and data center operations industries. So there's a lot of experience there with the two of them, and we have great teams on the real estate side and on the data center operations side. And we're both really excited to work for Raiden and see a lot of potential in our future there.
Geographies?
So we're primarily focused inside North America. We do have some international assets and good partners that help us complete a global footprint. But with 30,000 locations that we have under contract, we offer a lot of flexibility to customers who are looking to co-locate or expand their data center footprint here inside the U.S.
That's important. Location is everything, isn't it?
For sure. And right now, a lot of people have to settle, and we give them the flexibility of actually being where they want to be and what's ideal for their business versus having to settle for something that's less than ideal or takes forever to get to.
Right, that makes sense. Well, another area where there's potentially settling is power. It is such a big conversation around data centers, and for all of us here, why don't you tell us a little bit about your strategy there? Because there is no settling there. You guys are power forward, and I'd love to hear more about it.
For sure. So one of the pieces that is really important to Raiden is the adaptive reuse of existing real estate.
Great.
And part of that is power is already provisioned to a lot of locations today from a commercial real estate perspective.
Mhm.
And a lot of that power is stranded. So instead of going to the utilities and requesting more power, having to do more power plants, it's a super efficient way to be able to use existing power, which then allows for you not to overstress the grid. You can be a lot more sustainable. But the other part that's really important is you can actually have speed. So when you have technology moving faster than the infrastructure, you have our current situation today.
Right.
By us leveraging power that's already provisioned to locations and modernizing those facilities to be able to allow for whatever the customer requirements are for those specific locations, we can actually accelerate and bring customers into a data center within 6 to 12 months instead of having to wait 3 to 5 years for power, water, supplies, all those other pieces. We've already established those kind of supply chains and power provisioning to be able to help our customers deliver to their customers better, faster, and more effective than what they can do today.
And that's not an easy lift. There's so many steps that go into it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's a very complex industry with a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. One more question for you all. Why is it important to be able to modernize existing real estate inventory? Let's talk a little sustainability, because I think that's an interesting angle as well that you were telling me a little bit about off camera.
Yep, and Tim mentioned that as well in talking about leveraging existing power resources. We don't have to build new data centers from the ground up, but we can utilize space, sometimes dormant space, as we know a lot of people have shifted to remote work, and we get a lot of unused commercial spaces, in addition to unused power and resources, but also space that we can leverage for data centers.
Terrific. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd say the other piece is that it gives us the flexibility that a lot of established data centers don't have. So trying to do liquid to the chip or any of the more like immersion or advanced technologies that are out there.
Right.
Facilities that were built with a single purpose or a single model in mind sometimes have to go through a massive renovation, or they're just flat out incapable of actually being able to do that.
Right.
With us being able to reuse or upscale existing real estate that's out there and deployed, we can actually customize and have those solutions right off the bat versus trying to shoehorn something that doesn't necessarily fit.
That's critical. It sounds like a really good model here.
It's exciting for sure.
Great. Tim, Natalie, thank you.
Thank you so much for
appreciate you
having
joining
us.
us on
Thank you.
JSA TV today.
No, that's been awesome. Thank you again.
Oh, of course, of course. So thank you to you and to our viewers over at JSA. Thank you for tuning in. I invite you to stay curious, stay connected, and actually stay tuned because we have other live interviews coming to you this morning as well. And that's a wrap. Thank you.